Hey, welcome everyone. We're back to Sitecore Headless Development User Group. Today we have two speakers, and I'm very thrilled to get back to this user group in 2025. So there will be more sessions coming. The first speaker we have is John Flores. He will be talking about the Next.js Image component. And this is pretty powerful component. I know that from my experience. So, John, I will give you the stage. I think you have much more to tell us. Please welcome.
Thanks, Martin. Okay, let me share my screen. You guys see my screen? All good? Okay. So yeah, I'm John Flores. A little thing about me. I'm from Fish Tank Consulting, from Canada, and also um I just recently joined the Sitecore MVP as well. So that's also one of the thing about me. And I'll be
Welcome to the club.
presenting. Thanks. Yeah, first time, so hopefully it won't end. Yeah. Um, yeah, Next.js image optimization for headless development and also XM Cloud. So what I have prepared is I've broken it down to three parts. First, I have the importance of image optimization, how it's done in Next.js, and then how we can use that component in XM Cloud. First off, for why it's important, it's pretty straightforward. We have three things. Basically, faster page load, less bandwidth, and then better user experience. Basically, the smaller the size, or like the better the reduction, the faster it is. And then yeah, we all want all the images at least in a very still looking good, but maybe less in size. Ways in looking at that is basically one of the ways is you can use Lighthouse in the inspect tool in Chrome. So you can see that when you run it, it'll ask you that, oh, some of your images might still be, there still can be some saving there, can be reduced. So if you're using Next.js, then it'll also say that maybe you can use the image component from Next.js. So yeah. Next is let me see how Next.js actually uses the image optimization. So one of the default ways it does is it does some loading, a loader runs a loader on the image and then tries to compile it as a WebP file. Um, it also helps prevent any layout shift that's happening, and obviously faster page load. So the QR code there is just basically if you want to look at the Next.js documentation as well. So yeah, all of these things. So that is one of the reasons why it's good to actually use the image component that's provided in Next.js. So we want to use this image in XM Cloud. That's the goal here. I've made, so next is how the image component is used. Basically, it's just, you just import the component, pass in the path of your image, depending on how how you're using the component. There's two ways. Basically, if you're loading in local images or you're loading in remote images. So for local images, it's very straightforward. It should be able to read all of the other required fields. As you can see, width, height, and all of those are automatically provided because I think the image is stored locally. So it's pretty straightforward. Next is for remote images. So for this one, there are some things that you might need to add in. So for Next.js to be able to optimize the image, you have to provide the width and height. Well, there's another way. You can use fill for it. So that's one of the cool ways of bypassing the width and height, but it's still good to be able to use width and height because it helps make sure that the image is compiled or like processed in the best size that it needs to be. So I've made a small site that shows what happens when you try to optimize the images. So let me just drag it here. Can you guys see the window that I dragged?
I
Is
see.
it good?
Yes,
Yeah.
we
Okay,
see.
cool. Thanks. So here, so at the very top, I have two images. This is not a lot of difference. As you can see, on the unoptimized, it's 18 KB, while on the optimized, it's around 15. So not a lot of reduction. But as you go up, so I have another one that's of a larger quality. So that's already not even 1 MB. That's just around 740. But when I try to pass it in using the Next.js image instead of just a normal image tag, it gets reduced by around 68%. So that's a huge reduction. And if it's I hope it's clear on the screen share, but the quality you don't really see much of a difference. Um, Another thing that I can quickly share as well is so you can clearly see it here as well. So one of them is oh, not that. Where is it? Yeah, this one. So as you can see, we have like the image. If I search image, yeah, no, never mind. So we have these two. So we have the WebP images, and then we have the normal JPEG images. As you can see, we have around 200 on this one when initially it was around 740, and then this one from 11 it went from 18 it went down to 11. So yeah, it's pretty powerful and it's very straightforward to use. Nothing crazy. Just have to know um the width and height, and then import the component. So here's a screenshot of what I shared a while ago, just in case. And I've also have a quick screenshot of the different props that you can actually add into the component. So we have four required fields. So we have the width, the height, the source, and the alternate text. So all of those. So there are more things you can pass onto the component. So we have these are useful, especially if you want to narrow down specific behavior or conditions into your component. One of them is like quality, this one. So it's by default 80. So when you pass an image in, it will default to 80, which isn't really a bad number. But if you want to go lower, if you think you can still go lower, or you think that you want to max it out to 100, then you have the option. As well as you have stuff like loader. So if I said it a while ago, loader basically it's the it's the one that tries to optimize the image. So there are a lot of different packages that if your company already has an existing image optimization, you can pass that in, and then you can also override what Next.js has provided. So there's a lot of cool tools here, lazy loading, priority, to help LCP, all of those. So you can check it out on the Next.js documentation if you want to go deep dive into this. So how do we integrate into XM Cloud Sitecore? Before, it was I had to do a flip depending on if it's page editing or not. So when it's showing up on the site or on the front end, I usually just switch it using the image component from Next.js. from the image component that's coming from Sitecore or JSS. But now there's actually a new component, or like it's optimized to be easier to use actually, that Sitecore provides. So it's called Next Image. So very straightforward. As you can see, it's basically telling you that it's a Next.js component, but they've combined the two things into one. You get the benefits of an image component, which you can directly edit it using the editors in XM Cloud. And then it will be used as a next image when it shows up on the front end. Um, the props that you need inside of it, it's a mix of the two. So you can still use the field prop that was on the old image component. So pass the field that you've defined in XM Cloud with the image field type, and then you have other stuff that um all of the most of the fields that are existing on the JSS image, you can use it here, and then you can also use fields that are from the image component of Next.js here as well. So you have the best of both worlds, so which is pretty neat. um so as you can see here, I have a simple use of the next image. Pass in the same width, height that was required for the Next.js image. But now instead of the source, I have the field prop. I don't need an alternate text already because XMCloud or Sitecore, the field already provides that along. So that's all good. And then a class name, obviously, that uses Tailwind. And then I have another one that's sort of a mix of the two. I have, well, the first one had the field, but this one has more fields into it. So as you can see, I've added stuff like editable, fetch priority. So these are a mix of things that were in the old image component and with the next image. So it's pretty flexible now rather than having to manually switch between the two. Another thing though is you might need to configure additional stuff on your front end for this to work. So especially since a lot of the images are going to be remote images, so you might need to configure stuff on your front end, mostly on the next config. So if you have not configured anything on your Next.js config, you'll probably see this error on your screen. So basically, it's telling you that the image is coming from a host that you have not whitelisted. So that's pretty cool as well. Helps with security. Make sure that nobody's using images from just anywhere. So we can configure this in the next config. So at least you know what you need to whitelist. So on the Next.js config, which is a next config JS file on your front end, you should be able to see the next config variable there. And then you just have to pass in the images key there with the remote patterns. So the remote patterns, you can pass in, there are like different ways of handling it. This is like one of the ways that you can handle it. So you have the protocol, the host name, and the path name as well. So you can specify or add different regular expressions into it that fit your need. And I think that's mostly it on my end. Yeah. Any questions?
I have one quick question, maybe a stupid
Yeah.
question. So if I have a legacy implementation with this old Sitecore Next.js image, is there like I presume it's just find and replace, right? Almost that would work, right? It's just you have extra parameters or extra attributes that you can add, but can you just do find and replace to convert to this new image, or this will not work?
As long as, I have a slide. As long as you're using this version of the Sitecore JSS Next.js, you should be fine. Yeah. And then one of the things as well is to make sure that you have the width and height filled up. because if you don't have that filled up, I think it will fall back to the fill version, which basically it fills up. I don't it fills up the container. There might be chances that it will not work properly. So if you have the width and height set up, it should work fine, and the version as well.
But you can script it, I presume, right? So if you have like 100, because there are a lot of images on typically on typical site, right? So I presume if you do find and replace, you can find like a pattern how to do it, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
so yeah, that's possible. Yeah, good. I didn't even know that the image is such a big deal. I've always used the whatever Sitecore provides. So thank you for for this
Yeah,
info.
especially if you've used a lot of hero banners, a lot of hero components or hero blocks on your website. That's where it usually complains. It starts complaining. There's a lot of different lighthouse scores that are dependent on like how the images come through. So yeah, this will like you don't with this, you don't even need to tell clients or authors that try to reduce the quality of the image or reduce the size. Well, it's still a good practice, but at least with this, yeah, you're ensured that your images are at least on the reduced sized already. So you're safe with that.
Okay, my question would be, if I am using external source of data, let's say DIM or something that does full proper image optimization already. So I can use the technique you mentioned just simply to ignore any optimizations, right? So there will be optimizations coming from DIM rather than doing over optimization.
Yes. One of the things that I tried recently is I forgot the name, Scalar, I think. I think that's the one. But if you want to do a what do you call this? If you want to override the loader inside Next.js, if you can make a serverless function that basically all the images passes through that API, and then that API will serve your images in its optimized form. So that's what I have read for the loader. In yeah, if you've optimized it already before that, before it gets inside the front end, then I mean, based on like what I've showed a while ago, if it's already at a small size, it will still be good because it tries to even optimize it even more. So it might still get reduced by a few percent. But another thing is if you don't want the quality already affected, you can also increase the quality value to 100 maybe.
Okay. Thank you.
One quick question, John. Hi.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that so right now, let's say we're using we are currently using Sitecore XP, right? And we have done our optimization using a third-party vendor, right? We have a third-party optimizer which is doing that for us. So this will be in addition to that, help us improve more on the optimization, right? If we use the Next.js component instead of the standard image component we use right now.
Yeah, I mean there are multiple, so it's not only gonna optimize your image. If I try to go in that table, this one, there's one of the things here where it can also handle lazy loading as well if you want that. So
Okay.
there's a lot more options aside from trying to optimize the image that comes in. So there's like blur data that
Mm-hmm.
can be used to add in before the actual image comes in. There's also lazy loading as well there. So aside from trying to optimize the image, there's more stuff that you can leverage from this as well. So it's always nice to have it handy or um apply it into a project if possible.
Sounds good. No, that's right. Thank you.
And yeah, all of this as well is in one of the blogs that I've written. So there's a QR code there, or like if you try to check out the Get Fish Tank website or search it up in Google, it should come out. So yeah, if there's no more questions, I'll pass it over to Martin.
Yeah, John, thank you very much for the great presentation.
Thank you.
Now, I think we need to switch the spotlight to Boris Brodsky. And Boris Brodsky is my colleague. I am very proud working with you, Boris. I learned lots from you about the personalization and analytics in general. And today, Boris will bring some of this knowledge to the wider audience at this user group. So basically, you're going to talk about the general way of integrating Sitecore CDP Personalize with Cloud SDK and all the wide aspect of gathering and tracking data from the Sitecore website. Am I right assuming that?
Oh, you're absolutely right. But also there's a wrinkle to all of that. Now that we are composable, now that we are headless, that makes analytics somewhat a bigger problem. So we're going to be talking about that, how headless affects analytics, but also what can we do now in the headless scenarios, in composable scenarios with our analytics. So as the name suggests, from data to decisions, Sitecore CDP personalized analytics for headless enterprise. I mean, if you look at modern enterprises, right, today, most of them are composable, and most of them already have multiple products that actually developed to be connected. So this is the reality, Martin. So yeah, that's an excellent question. So yeah, thank you for introduction, and it's nice working with you. Let me move this up. So my name is Boris Brodsky. I have been working in Sitecore ecosystem for the past 16 years. I've started on Sitecore 6.5, and I've never liked 6.5 at all. And I thought, like, what the heck? Came from a development background. I thought I'm going to be tortured here with Sitecore. And now, 16 years later, I am aligned to Sitecore. This is amazing. I've never believed that this would happen. If the first 3 months of my 6.5 delivery, you would have asked me what I think about Sitecore. I can't repeat it here because now I love Sitecore, but back in the days it was not that. So
I have absolutely the same feedback about Sitecore. I started with version 6.0 and I didn't like what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand why do we have all this overhead against working natively with the database and like lots of other things, because Sitecore was not that much major these days, but after version 8, everything has changed.
Exactly. So I'm based near Baltimore, Maryland. I am Sitecore MVP, and I worked at Zone Digital. You might have heard this from Martin, so there's definitely parallel. We have other people working at Zone Digital. We are small, but we are not that small. We are like 40 people now, 40 people strong, but every single person is absolutely amazing. So check us out. We are new, but we are not that new. You know the names. You have Martin right here. So check us out. Definitely worth checking. So you can check also my website, borisbrodsky.com, and we're gonna look at what we're gonna be talking about today. So first on agenda item is analytics strategy. Why Sitecore CDP Personalize should be a central analytics platform for headless? And that's a very interesting question. You will see why why I want to ask this question. Second, we're going to look at integration patterns. There are 4 ways to integrate Sitecore CDP Personalize into pretty much any stack, from Cloud SDK to Engage SDK to Engage Script and to REST API. And there is some confusion around about what's the best way. And we will try to disassemble it. There's definitely a pattern to apply here. So stay tuned. We're going to look at data normalization. And this is least covered topic around Sitecore CDP Personalize, and just around headless is what do we do with this data once we have it? How do we normalize, how we make sense out of with this data? We're going to have quick demo around that. And finally, visualization, how we present this data to end users, and all of that good stuff. So let's get started. And we're going to look first beyond monolithic analytics, adapting to headless and hybrid architectures. So today, most enterprises, as I mentioned before, have an array of different platforms. You might have multiple headless platforms, multiple heads. You might have a legacy application, and all in between. So what happens de facto is that the legacy analytics, so typical analytics that we know and know well, might not be optimal for headless situations. And so to understand it, let's look at the problems that headless enterprise might see. And first of all, data fragmentation across heads. So let's say you have Sitecore content management system on top of Next.js. Then you might have Optimizely platform, and then you might have a portal application that you've developed on classic ISP. Today, it's almost impossible to kind of trace user journey and understand how user interact with all our assets using modern, using existing analytics platforms like Google or Adobe for that matter, or even other systems by themselves. Like combined, yes, but not individually. So you might end up having multiple platforms as a result. The second big problem is inability to measure true business impact. This is most important one. As a developers, all we really concern is that we are tracking data, we are tracking interactions, we are tracking impressions, and it's all about honestly wrong KPIs, because what we should be tracking is performance, how our campaign performs, ROI. And for another good example is where we create a content on our site. We spend money, invest time of our content authors, but we don't know what value this content provides to our business, to our bottom line. And so this is the second part. The third one is changes in delivering relevant content in real time. Now, obviously, this talks about personalization, and so personalization is critically important. But again, you need yet another tool to do personalization. And so the last one is attribution challenges. So because you have all these heads and all these front ends, and the data is owned often by multiple teams, there might be a case where you don't have consistency between those use cases or those different heads. And when you capture this analytics data into your platform, you will have quite a bit of mess if not taken properly. So this is typical issues that you see across all organizations. Some do better, others at different kind of places. But overall, this is the problem with the headless analytics. Now, if we look at how to solve this problem, and here Sitecore CDP Personalize comes to play. It's absolutely amazing tool for analytics, which is not really known for that as much. So if you look at Sitecore CDP Personalize and its key capabilities, obviously it has real-time personalization. That's what this tool was designed for. So you can build web experiences, web experiments, you can do A/B testing, you can do all of that. That's what this tool is for. You can do it across all channels too. So if you have legacy application and you have modern application, you can deliver similar personalized experiences to both. But where I guess there's a gap is the data that this product captures is absolutely amazing. So you have all this complex data that you can use to build beautiful and powerful reports, and then you can actually build a complete 360 view of a customer within that same tool. So you de facto can do what Google Analytics does, what Adobe Analytics does as far as data modeling, and what maybe Domo does to present the data. You can do it all with this the data set from Sitecore CDP Personalize. Actually, let me show you how this data looks like. First of all, this data is available to us as if you have Sitecore CDP Personalize, you have access to, as they call it, data lake export. Essentially, it's AWS S3 bucket, where you will see this type of data set. First, you will have guests. I mean, I'll ignore orders for now, but for most users, it will be guests, sessions, and events. And you have everything that you need to build Google-like reports, but with customer information in them. So let's go back here. So let's move on. So now so the integration is the key, right? Integration, without integration, we can't really build anything, right? And here there is a bit of complexity. So first of all, integration is relatively simple, right? It's just a script or npm module or along those lines. So it's not very complex, but where complexity starts is which integration method to choose. So we have Engage SDK, which is based on npm installation method. It's great for modern UIs. Then we have Engage script, which is de facto a bug saver script that is branded for Sitecore, and it works with TPM, TMSs. It works for legacy front ends where you can't run npm. It's basically where you can include script. This is where it's going to work. So it will work pretty much everywhere. Then we have Cloud SDK, which is the latest and greatest tech from Sitecore, and we're going to look at where it should be used. But in general, anything that is Sitecore ecosystem, there we should use Cloud SDK, basically. And finally, we have REST API. This is for use cases where we can't really do web integration. Maybe your front end is not publicly accessible, or you have like highly secure environment where you can't really stream a personalization back through HTTP methods or public channels, which kind of defeats the purpose because this tool is designed to be used by end users. So, but nevertheless, REST API is definitely an option for integration. Now let's look at how this really applies, and this is where complexity starts. As of today, Cloud SDK can only be used officially with XM Cloud, but currently Sitecore is in the process to actually deploy this to XP and XM. You will have to be on 10.4 plus and GSS 22. So, but it's going to work on XP as well. So this is great news because it means that you're not going to need to have Engage SDK if you plan to use it within Sitecore ecosystem. This will be one product for all use cases. So that's a great news. Obviously, it's not going to work for non-Sitecore frameworks. So it only works with GSS Next.js, ASP.NET Core, which is still in alpha, and GSS Angular. And that's really use case for this product. So if you have Sitecore XP or XM or XMC, this is the framework we're going to be using moving forward. And currently, it's in the process of being launched for XP. It's not yet active. I've got early access. I've tested it with XP. It certainly works. It's definitely the product to choose. The second one is Engage SDK. That's you can install it with npm. It will work with any modern front end, GSS Next.js application, and Next.js application. It's not going to work with React, and it's not going to work with Angular, for example. So it has limitations. And I think Engage SDK will fade away once Cloud SDK picks up. That's likely the use case. Now, Engage script, on the other end, will continue to exist. And the thinking is this. If you have a hybrid environment where you have Sitecore and some other system and maybe legacy platform, you can use Engage script. Engage script can be used for anything that has like HTML front end. It's going to work, legacy or modern. Also, it's good for when you intend to inject the script through a tag management system. And finally, REST API is for use cases where you want to communicate with your instance server side. So for Next.js, it's in SSR mode. For Angular, it's in universal mode. And for server side applications, obviously through API and REST. Any questions here? Because this is relatively complicated slide. So I'm hopeful that it makes sense as far as integration goes. Not, I'll move on. Just stop me if you have any questions. So Cloud SDK for anything Sitecore, Engage script is for non-Sitecore stuff, all legacy front ends. That's the bottom line here. So few considerations when we use Sitecore CDP Personalize, especially in a headless scenario. So very important decisions that you have to make, and once made, it's going to be very impactful on the future of the integration. So first, server side versus client side. Critical decision, if you go with server side integration, and it means that you're not going to be able to use web experiences, web experiments, only full stack experiences will be available to you, and it will have other limitations, but it'll give you ultimate security. You're going to have full control over what has been displayed and how it's been displayed. Engage SDK versus Cloud SDK, another big decision. So if you are on XP, let's say 9 or 10.1 or 10.2, you will have decision to make whether you're going to go with Engage SDK, Engage script, or you upgrade to 10.4 and then install and then use Cloud SDK. Third one is identity. Now, the way identity works in CDP Personalize, identity is just an event. So if you have a scenario where you have an application that has, like, for example, login or authentication authorization, basically, if you have a portal application and you want to implement identity in that application, so here's what might happen. So if first user logs in and browser ID got created, and that user logs out, the browser ID still stays. The second user logs in. At that time, events from the first user will be reassigned to that second user. So you can see how dangerous this is if it is not taken, if it is not considered. Now, there are ways to handle it, like through cookie management, other ways to do it, but it has to be handled. So whenever you develop identity in your headless application with Sitecore Personalized, consider identity as a top priority and make sure it's handled properly. Page tracking. This is another big item. So if you use Cloud SDK today and you do nothing, the page tracking will not happen. Actually, let me find this example here. So essentially, you need to use route change complete and use path name depends on your router type. And that is because page load doesn't really happen in Next.js when you move from page to page. It's just the route is changing. And by the way, I'm really excited to be mentioned by Sitecore documentation team for offering this advice. So that's why I bragged a little bit about it. But let's get back here. Then CDP personalized taxonomy. That's another huge item. So imagine this: you have multiple heads, and each head has its own, possibly often has its own team that handling this head. If name convention or event names are not taken care of, you end up having like a total mess within CDP personalized product itself. Or another example, let's say you have two systems. And remember, CDP Personalize is omnichannel. So you will have multiple sources. And if these sources use name convention in the same way, like homepage, for example, it's going to be very difficult for you to visualize which homepage this event happened on. So we have to consider it. All solvable. There are ways to solve this in Sitecore CDP Personalize, but this needs to be a consideration. And finally, consider use of channel over POS. This is another big item, and this is where the biggest difference between Engage SDK and Cloud SDK is. So in the Engage SDK, you have ability to dynamically set POS, point of sale, which means that if you have, let's say, React native app, where the app itself can be mobile app or can be just a normal website. In this case, in case of Engage SDK, you can set POS dynamically, and one POS could be mobile app, the second one could be website. But if you do that and you take this to your Cloud SDK later on, or you have a hybrid environment where you use Cloud and Engage, this will not work because Cloud SDK doesn't have POS. What they do is they map context ID to client key, and then that creates a site name which maps to POS internally on Sitecore end. So that's a very important item that needs to be considered as well. Any questions so far? If you have any questions, just stop me.
Yes, of course, of course. You raised actually, you opened Pandora box by saying that, and I'm wondering how and what are general strategies of moving. Let's say if I was previously using Engage SDK, which was the case because Cloud SDK is pretty new framework, and when we got this XM Cloud 2 or 3 years ago, there were no Cloud SDK, and many people start using tracking by Engage SDK because Personalize was shipped and advised as a separate product. So let's say we gathered some statistics and we tracked a lot of things. Is there a smooth way of moving into the world of Cloud SDK without losing the data? Or even maybe broader question, if let's say someone is moving from XP world of things and wants to go directly to Cloud SDK. I know it might be complicated, so if you have an answer.
Actually, it's simple. That part is easy as long as you didn't use this POS in that way. Because you actually, the proper way would have been to use a channel, which is available. But to your point, like how difficult it is to move from Engage to Cloud, it's actually trivial. Literally, you're gonna need to make few changes. That's it. These frameworks are very similar. The only difference is point of sale. That's the only difference, right? Now, in Cloud SDK, you don't need to have page view event because it tracks pages natively. In the Engage SDK, you do have page view event. So if you don't call it, you don't track pages. So if you actually tracked pages in Engage SDK case, and then you move into Cloud SDK, you just need to remove this event, the page view event, and that's it. Everything else stays the same, pretty much. So that's excellent question, and this is I think the migration will be straightforward for most part. But if you did,
I think we have these questions.
Yeah, but if you do have POS, and I actually someone on Slack had this problem, and they used POS to move from one type of product to another. For them, that's a big deal. What Sitecore said is that they consider this as a feature request. They will implement it at some point, but we know it might not happen for a year or so, or if not more.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah. So now that we've completed this discussion, so we've completed integration. Now we know we've selected Cloud SDK or Engage script, whatever that might be. We discussed taxonomy. The next step in the journey to implement this product would be to start doing essentially personalization. So we can build web experiences, web experiments. Up until number 3, this is like out of the box standard CDP personalized way. But while at it, we've captured tons of good data. And so question is this, what can we do with this data? And we can do tons with this data. We can build Lakehouse, we can create Delta Lake, we can use Fabric, Databricks, really to understand this data and to share this data. But we can also build and visualize this data and use Tableau, Power BI, Doma to really build beautiful reports. So that 4 and 5 is not your typical implementation for CDP Personalize, but it should be. And that's really powerful stuff. So let's see where we actually want to start. And I pulled this from my presentation that I did at SACON Malaga. The thinking is this, that on the left side, you have this legacy strategy and implementation of monolith systems, right? You start with the strategy, you complete your strategy, you hand it over, and you do technology, and pretty much it takes a year. So in a composable world, it's nothing like that, right? It's all the focus is on business outcomes and data, and combined, it creates this new strategy. So data is the first class citizen in composable and headless, and therefore we need to start thinking about data from a different perspective, all different perspective. And there are different types of data and different utilizations of the data, but data in general is key component of new composable architecture. And on top of that, we have this new paradigm where AI data needs to be ready for AI. I mean, whenever we build new stuff and it is data related, we almost know for certainty that this will be used by some AI model now and in the future. And so data integration, gathering data from multiple endpoints is critical. So for example, having behavioral data by itself has no value. I mean, it's just a bunch of clicks and events if it is not tied to some activity or some purpose. But if you have behavioral data, customer data, and they maybe CRM data, and maybe like campaign data, suddenly you can actually fit this data into a AI model and really understand your user in a completely different way. With that, we also need to consider data governance and quality of that data, because if we are gathering all this data in one place, first, who can access my data? For example, behavioral data, maybe it doesn't have PII component, but maybe it does, and all of that suddenly becomes a problem because you're going to have a lot of data in that store. And so we need to worry about quality of that data too. Having terabytes of data has no purpose. A while back, I worked for startup, a small startup, not like super fancy startup. And we spent upwards of hundreds of thousands of dollars to capture data. And we had terabytes of data, but there was no really value in that. We couldn't use it for anything meaningful. And so capturing data into a data warehouse is not necessarily the goal. It's having quality data. That's what really matters. And this is where scalable data architecture comes to play. And within that, we have three, I guess, architectural design patterns that we need to look at. Data mesh, it's ideal for decentralized composable architectures, where essentially you have products that host their own data sets, and if not taken care of, these data sets become siloed, and we don't want that. So main concept of data mesh is data as a product. So you capture data, but your purpose is to create value for your data. Now, with data products, though, there is a caveat. It's decentralized, means that multiple teams might have their own ways to name things or just to do things differently. And that's not ideal for the enterprise-wide analysis. So this is where UDM, Unified Data Model, comes to play. The concepts there is how you govern that. How do you ensure that whatever these individual teams do with their own data product still compatible with overall view of data within that specific organization. So UDM principles, some principles at least, are very useful to help kind of substitute the disadvantages of that data mesh. And final architecture that I think we need to pay attention to is medallion architecture, which is architecture of lakehouse architecture for that matter. And the medallion stands for Olympics. Basically, Olympians, they win medals, gold, silver, and bronze. And same with the data collection. Bronze layer refers to raw data, whatever you have, like documents, PDFs, SQL databases, Parquet files, CSV documents, whatever. Then from there, you have next level, which is a silver level. This is where you actually normalize your data and make more sense out of it, but it's still not gold layer. The gold layer is your product, data is a product layer. And so if you look at this diagram here, it's an example of how Lakehouse can be implemented. So on the left side, we have data producers, Sitecore CDP, XConnect, CRM, some other data sources. Here we have shortcuts So you don't need to actually move data. If you use Data Fabric, for example, Microsoft Fabric, you don't need to move data from where it is to your Fabric environment. You can create a shortcut, and this is where Sitecore Personalize is quite powerful. So let me show you what I mean by that. 1 second. Oh, I'll come back to it. So the idea basically here is that, oh yeah, here it is. So the idea is that today, to create that shortcut, you need to create your own instance of S3 bucket. But Sitecore have this item on their roadmap, so that soon they're going to enable this functionality where you're going to be able to connect your Fabric pointer to your S3, to your Sitecore S3 bucket without need to move this data over. And this is really powerful stuff. It means that you don't need to really move data over to do this type, to do what you need to do on the right side. And so once you've created shortcut, you've created pipeline to move the data, the next step is you store it in one lake, or you store it in Lakehouse if you use Databricks. And then you use transform capabilities of Spark to massage the data, use machine learning to create the gold level, essentially your data product level. And then the data can be used by applications. So data de facto can be streamed back to Sitecore Personalize so that you can personalize based on this data. But it can also be used for analytics purposes and to display reports in Power BI. And then we can use Azure Purview to do data governance. This is if you use Microsoft Fabric, but Databricks would be probably more powerful option, but obviously it comes with a higher price tag. So, any questions here? Perfect. So if not, we're going to look at Fabric. So this is really the brains of this operation. So this is our S3 bucket. Sitecore data is right here. So we have our data lake, which is essentially, as we discussed, consists of different layers. So this is the bronze. This is the bronze layer. This is our data. We drop it as we get it from Sitecore in its format. And then we transform this data into these tables, which is, I would say, our like silver level, where we have normalized data, and it is normalized. Let me show you how it is normalized. It is normalized. Oops. It is normalized, and you can see it visualized like this. So this is my somewhere I have my events like guests, sessions, events. So this is and I can build all this kind of cardinalities between different tables, so that my data is now normalized, and then I can build gold layer, which would be data product or maybe Azure function that will expose this data back to other applications. But here's what's important is, like, if we look at analytics, the end result of all of this. Oh, and I need to mention the data is normalized. So I have this normalization notebook that actually normalizes this data, but not just this data, right? I can get data from CSV document and store it into CDP Personalize. I can get it from actually XDB and do the same, or I can load additional data from CSV file and build my reports that way. So let's look at what you get, the kind of end product result of all of that. So there's the typical reports that you can build. As you can see, this report's as good as what you get from Google. So you get things like active users, new users, key events. You can get trajectory, what's going on within this period of time, whether it's getting better or it's getting worse. So you can play with the data. You get average session duration, but and this is how we are different from Google here, so that we can actually display campaign ROI or engagement score. So we can actually display tangible benefits that you really cannot easily build in Google Analytics, especially in a hybrid headless and non-headless environments. And then you can build things that you really cannot build in Google at all. like for example, campaign halo effect. So I don't know, anyone knows what that means? Basically, campaign halo is how your campaign um, influences future purchases. So someone might have seen an ad on the website and they didn't really convert it right away, but they maybe they came back next day and did purchase next day. The halo effect shows you what happens after your campaign have been executed next day, and so the halo effect is more important than ever. And you can build things like that in using purely Sitecore CDP personalized data sets. And then you can build campaign traffic reports, customer journey reports, like things that really powerful and amazing. And all of that can be built based on Sitecore CDP personalized data. So let's get back to here. And that's really all I have. Any questions? And sorry that this was a kind of, I've tried to combine a lot of info in a very short presentation.
Yeah, that's indeed. Yeah, it was quite a deep dive into the data. And to be honest, I didn't get everything from, like, I didn't get 100% from what you said, but I tried to figure out what questions I had initially. Okay, maybe John, you have a question meanwhile.
No, it's more on like for me, like I've also recently been delving into CDP and personalized. So this is very what do you call this? Feels like home to me as well. So it's nice to hear about it.
Okay, then probably I'll ask about the validation. So we do a lot of, so we're gathering data in a big volumes, right? And we treat this gathered data as granted, but we don't know if this data is actually valid. What I mean by that is a couple times when I was implementing CDP and Personalize, I actually got tracking recorded incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that was a developer mistake. The reason for that was misunderstanding of the documentation. The reason for that was some inaccuracy in the deployments. But it ended up exactly that same. The data was like tracking was not gathered right. So here's what I'm wondering. Are there any like ways of validating what you tracked?
Yeah, and this is a really good question, and especially valid question when you have multiple heads, multiple front ends, right? I mean, think about it. You have multiple implement like multiple front ends that pull data in. How do you know if your data is of a good quality? And it's always been a challenge and a question. Now, here's the good news. The data that Sitecore CDP Personalize captures, that data is used to do personalization. So typically when you implement Personalize, right, you will test your data. It's not just data you're going to use for analytics as Google does, right? Or Google Analytics does, where you just capture data, but you don't really use this data to do anything like meaningful. Here, you use data to do personalization. So even before you analyze this data, you're going to use this data to do actions, right? Maybe display specific content. So you're going to know whether you have good quality or not just because of that. So that's why, that's another reason, actually, that's a good point. That's another reason why Sitecore CDP Personalize is a great option for analytics, because your data has been actively used, not just for reporting purposes, but also to personalize content all the time. Yeah.
And A/B testing as
Yeah.
a better example, I think, because basically A/B testing is like a secondary validation of your track data. Even if your track data had some inaccuracy in some way, and that reflects in the invalid A/B test being presented, the result, the outcome of this A/B test, if it's measured, it will show up you were not right. That's how I get it, at least.
Yeah, and that's fair, and the mistakes will happen. The good news is, because you centralized your data, what you might be able to do is you might actually apply AI models to find issues, right? Or like, for example, it happened to me many times. when I was developing Personalize is that you know how Next.js, when it runs in debug mode, it executes page refresh twice or whatever. I don't know the proper term for that. But so I've seen that happens in CDP Personalize where your data reported twice, and so
That was my case as well. Yes, yes. Yeah, one
yeah.
of the things.
Yeah, and so you apply AI model, it'll find it for you in 5 seconds. Why? Because it'll find a pattern where every event will appear twice with the same timestamp. So this is where you can apply AI to validate your data if your data is staged in a way like where you can do it. Like, so if you have data in this format, for example, stored in this data lake, you can point existing machine learning model to it and like through this notebook and say, find me abnormalities, right? And in 5 minutes, you will get results saying, hey, these events happened like within a second, it's the same event, check your front end. So this type of things, AI is great at catching. So that's another reason why we want to build lakehouse architecture, so we can really analyze our data not by looking at it, but by using modern tools, if that makes sense.
I am trying to approach the product from the other side, namely from the return of investment point. And when it comes to the larger companies, big organizations, it's like a no-brainer. I see the value, but when it comes to like small or medium, does it make sense at all? Because the effort may be incomparable to what they get back.
True, but let me say this. Let me kind of stop. That's a good point, right? And I mean, obviously, if you are WordPress type of organization, you're not gonna buy CDP Personalize. But if you are mid market org, right, and you're looking to get most out of it, and I'll give you an example. I worked for a company that used to have had Adobe Analytics, Domo, Telium, and they actually needed to purchase personalization routine. Before personalization purchase, the bill for products just to capture KPIs was just under $1 million a year. 1 mil. So I'm just saying, in this case, this organization can get Sitecore CDP Personalized and get everything that they were doing with Domo, Telium, Adobe, and personalization in one package. So yes, it's not cheap product. I mean, comparatively to WordPress, it's not cheap product, but it can do all of the above. It can do a lot of things that other products can. So that's
Well, in your example, I think it was the return of investment was justified by the poor strategy of that organization, poor strategy team, rather than the product itself. But I see the big value if everything you described is somehow packaged into the kind of solution and offering that basically you can adopt in quite faster pace than do it all manually.
Yeah,
that I see as a big value.
Yeah, and the best part is in AI reality that we are living in, right? You want your data to be AI checked. So here's the advantage of CDP Personalized. First, you get behavioral data. Second, you get CDP, which means that you get customer information in that same area. And third, your data is in AWS S3 bucket and Parquet format, which you can easily get and apply. So it's the perfect scenario. You have everything that you need.
And now you combine all three and you get superpower from that.
Yeah. And I think I see that when people talk about Sitecore CDP Personalized, they only see value in personalization, but I see value, actually more value in analytics of CDP Personalized than obviously we want to personalize, and that's all good. But I think the analytics value of this tool is absolutely amazing.
I only can wonder where you get all this experience and knowledge from.
Well, I've spent quite a bit of time figuring this out, and but I think this came as a surprise to me, like too, because I thought like Sitecore CDP Personalize has quite I thought it's a niche product, right? Like designed specifically to handle web experiences. But then, this is the challenge, right? Most folks, and Martin, you've been doing Sitecore for a while, right? And John, you're also doing Sitecore for a while, right? Have you looked at CDP personalized data, how it looks? See, I didn't as well. Like I thought, like, I mean, why would I care, right? Like, but when I looked at it, that's when I realized this data is beautiful. I have everything that I need. It's just well structured and and it's simple. It's easy to understand. So there's really no complexity here. The complexity is how you get this data and how you process and what you connect it to, like to build this 360 view of a customer. But data by itself is perfect. It's better than Google's data. It's cleaner. So why not to use it, right? It's here. I can build things like amazing things. Let me open this report. Like, for example, things that you get from Google Analytics, like, for example, I can get session duration. So easy. It's just simple calculation. Took me like 20 minutes to build this DAX formula to calculate it, right? I remember days when we used to do this in XDB. In XDB, this would have been like 3 months like project. It would have killed me. And I've done this in XDB. It was horrible, hard. But
very important database.
Yeah.
and the efforts related to that.
Yeah, the way the XDB data was structured was a nightmare. It was possible because XDB data actually is a server-side data. So it's the most best data you can possibly have. This is client-side data. Means that if someone has like a JavaScript blocker, right, the events will not be recorded. So, but XDB is perfect. It's server-side. Though with that came complexity. This one is straightforward. So I think we're gonna see a lot more of this, and we are ahead of everybody else as far as because we trying to, like, I'm doing this as part of Zone Digital effort, right? So we are looking at it now because we believe this is the future of analytics. If you are using this product, or if you are considering this product, that can be another advantage why you should choose this product. So yeah, I love this product. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that.
You're very
I
passionate
think,
about it. We see.
yeah, I love this product. I think it's a great product and great potential. Well, I also like other products. This is just one of few.
Awesome. Right. There are no more questions, Boris. Thank you very much for these wonderful insights. It makes me think a lot about. Maybe I will rewatch it a couple times to get parts I missed, but it was really much valuable.
If anyone has questions on the call, reach out. I'm really excited about this product, and I think the more we spread the word, the more work will be for all of us, right? Because we need this product to become mainstream. It is mainstream, but even more mainstream.
So, is it safe to get you by the LinkedIn if anyone has questions?
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much for being here, and here we will wrap up this 12th meeting of Sitecore Headless Development User Group. And the next one we have in less than a month from now, 17th of April. So see you there. Bye-bye.
Martin, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.